Thanks so much for coming. Before we begin our discussion, please allow me to give a proper introduction on your preeminent career. It's true.
My trail of destruction.
As one of the most important figures in the history of Atlantic Records, Mr. Tom Dowd has produced the biggest and brightest of R&B, gospel, jazz, and rock, like names Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Meat Loaf, Rod Stewart, Eric Clapton, Ray Charles, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, ABBA, Allman Brothers, Dr. John, Modern Jazz Quartet, John Coltrane, and the list goes on and on. Mr. Dowd is also a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and today we are very fortunate to have him serve as a tour guide through the prestigious Criteria Studios. And to enter into the Criteria Studios, how did you begin your career at Criteria?
Well, actually, Mac Emmerman and I were in touch with each other during the 50s because at that time the National Association of Record Manufacturers would have conventions down here, and Atlantic would make presentations, and rather than fly equipment from New York to Miami, I would call up Mac, who was the best equipped studio here, rent a tape machine, an amplifier, and speakers from him. And so that started our friendship, though ultimately this led Atlantic to saying, hey, if their studio's got that kind of equipment, we ought to try it someday. And that's how we got into Criteria.
We see you in Studio A's console control room.
Welcome to Criteria Recording Studio A. This room was built in the late 50s. As we get out into the vestibule, you'll see that it is an enormous recording studio. It was designed for that time period when Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, and those people used to do their shows along the beach. Arthur Godfrey, Jackie Gleason. Whenever those people were down here, if need be, they would do a film shoot in here because there's complete film facility upstairs. They would do taping for guest appearances and so forth without having to fly to New York to interrupt their trip back and forth. The console we have in this studio is a Neve. I forget whether it's an 8076 or an 8078, but I will say this for those of you who have really deep, poignant feelings and nostalgia sends rushes. Some of the components in this console come out of the Abbey Road console that Yellow Brick Road was cut on. This species of console has long since been replaced by Tridents and SLs and the Neve Flying V. But this is a favorite neutral console of engineers historically. There are a few of them still functioning. Most people like to try and automate them. This one is in its virgin manual hands-on condition. No fader is going to move. It has no memory. You have to write down everything that you do and hope that when somebody says do it again, you can restore it. The major enhancement to this console is this device, and every musician out in the studio would have a similar type device, so that instead of the engineer being labored to send to the earphones something that'll make the drummer happy, something that'll make the vocalist happy, something that'll make the guitar player happy, something that'll make the conductor happy, give them whatever they want and they can dial it in themselves. You get it out of here. Because doing it this way, you liberate all of these faders to the engineers being able to employ them for going to different effects, different equalizers, different echoes, and so forth. If you had to mix 5 or 6 separate cues in here, all of a sudden you're handcuffed. Like old telephone switchboards, strangely enough, we still carry that tradition from the old days when you used to see in the black and white movies somebody make a phone call and here's a girl sitting there with a mouthpiece on and says, I'll connect you, zip. Well, not everything on the console is the way the engineer wants it at any time. So all he has to do is reach in and find what it is he wants and plug it someplace else, like, get out of my way, that's where I want you, okay? And that negates all the brains that went into making the thing in the first place, right? But everybody has to have the ability to flip around and do whatever the heck they want, whenever they want. As far as this room is concerned, I can honestly say I, myself, did Lynyrd Skynyrd in here. I did Rod Stewart in here. Some Aretha Franklin. ABBA. I thought, yeah, maybe even some Dr. John in here. By golly, this was not, because of the vast size of the room, it was not the room that I often worked in. I love the room. As a fact, my last, the album I'm working on right now, on All in Files, I did in this room. But I did it because I wanted a big room, because I forbid the musicians to wear earphones, to play as if they were in a natural environment with the foot monitors on for them, but no PA feed, just the foots. And they had to play soft enough or dynamically enough that they could hear each other and hear the singer. Because when you put earphones on, it's like going into a sterile chamber as far as I'm concerned. Nobody's listening to what's going on except to what they're playing. And so I defeated that by putting a small band in the big room and making them play live, or simulating playing live. But normally, 15, 20 years ago when I was recording in here, earphones were the vogue. And if you had double sacks of Marshalls and stuff like that, good God, somebody had to have earphones on, not to hear the Marshalls, to protect themselves.